Today I'm making Creton, a popular French-Canadian dish. And this is some ground pork. I got 3 pounds of ground pork. I'm gonna put in my Dutch oven here. And seeing how this is not a non-stick pan, I put a little canola oil. So, my grandparents were immigrants from Rivière-du-Loup, Quebec. So I know firsthand about this dish. My grandmother used to make this. So I'm basically using my grandmother's recipe here today. And Creton is often known as Garton in these parts. Spelled G-O-R-T-O-N, but pronounced Garton with it. My mother used to pronounce it with that rolling R, Garton. But anyways, this is an excellent dish, and you can use lean pork, but I don't like using real lean pork. This is about 80% lean pork, which works out really excellent. And this is going to make a wonderful meat spread to go on, traditionally served on toast with mustard or croissant as a side dish too. It's very simple but delicious traditional dish prepared by Quebecois people. Now, where I grew up on the west side of Manchester, it used to be known as Little Quebec or Little Canada because we had so many Quebecois people there. They immigrated here for the opportunity to work in the Masquerade mill buildings in Manchester, and they provided a huge workforce for the mill buildings. And they were very hard-working people. That was not an easy job to work. Working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, or even more. So I have a lot of respect for those people. And my grandfather was a carpenter, and he was known as one of the best framers in the state of New Hampshire. So the French-Canadian immigrants really had a big part of building this town. But anyways, here's my ground pork. I'm going to add some water. Now, some people put a lot more water. Some people will put milk now. Some people will put milk at a different stage of the cooking. This is how my mother always did it. So there's different variations of this. And a lot of people have different ways of cooking it. So this is my pork. Now I've got some spices here. There's some cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, salt and pepper. I like a little garlic powder in mine too, and a little celery seed. Now I'm gonna add some onions, chopped up onions. Man, that looks like a lot. It's not a lot. You can never have too many onions. So I'm gonna keep talking about this as I go along, but I'm just gonna stir this and let it go for a little bit. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. So I got this on a medium heat and it's simmering nice. And at this point, some people would use a potato masher or fork to kind of crush that up a little bit. I'm not gonna bother, because when it's done cooking, I'm gonna put it here. And speaking of my mother's old Cuisinart, and that's gonna make that nice and fine. So back in the day, I knew when my mother was making this stuff, and because it would smell up the whole house. And in those days, you had to cook pork a lot longer than you do now. I don't know if because of the disease it had and people were Probably people got sick on pork back then, and you had to cook it a lot longer. And she used to use sometimes like the whole big pork shoulder or pork butt. She would just cook that for hours and hours, but it really smelled good in the house. So, and some of the stores, there's a couple stores around here that make this, or you can buy it pre-made from a company in Massachusetts, and some of them they're way too spicy. I don't like a ton of spices. I mean, a little cloves and cinnamon and nutmeg go a long way in my book. I use the measurements from my grandmother's recipe, and it comes out perfect. And some of them are loaded with sodium too, salt. I don't know why people put so much salt, but so today's pork is a lot leaner than it used to be back in the day also. And I remember when my mother used to make this sometimes, after she'd put it in the refrigerator, there would be like a half-inch thick of fat that you'd have to skim off from this. The pork that I'm using today, it's about 80% lean, and all of the fat is going to incorporate it in the meat and the mixture after I put it in the Cuisinart there, and there won't be any of that. So anyone watching their fat intake, you don't want to eat a lot of this, but you know, maybe you can just cut down on some extra desserts or something if you eat this. So I've never died from this, I'll tell you that much. So we'll continue on when this is a little farther into the cooking process. Here we go. I'm gonna do the finishing touches on this. So this pork mixture has been going, oh geez, maybe half an hour. You know, some people simmer it for an hour, 2 hours, and they say the longer you simmer it, you know, the more tender it's gonna be. I've never had any problem with that. Besides, I'm gonna pulverize it right in here in my mother's Cuisinart. So this thing is a beast, and she bought this in the late 70s or around 1980, I think, and it works really well. So I'm looking forward to hearing from anyone else that makes this and how you make it, and if you have any good stories to tell about it, good memories of your family making this, your parents or grandparents. But when I was a kid, I lived on the west side of Manchester, and everybody and their brother, as they say, was French Canadian, and everybody spoke French, and we went to Catholic schools where the nuns would teach you in French. They were all French, and there were some odd stories about the nuns, but they were very good teachers, I'll say that. I'm not going to go into any of the other stuff, but they were very good teachers. But anyways, and they the nuns in Manchester built the hospital, and but anyways, that's getting away from the story here. So I'm pulverizing the Creton here, and otherwise known as Creton. That's what my mother called it, Creton. And somewhere across the border of Quebec to New Hampshire, the pronunciation got changed a little bit. So if anyone knows the exact story of that, let me know. I think it's just the Franglais pronunciation, as they say, you know, the Franco-American, you know, things get changed, and maybe it gets, everyone's recipe changes as it goes through the years, and blah, 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 you know how that goes. So no big deal at all, tastes the same, right? So here we go. I'm putting it in this Cuisinart here, and this will freeze really good too after it's cooled completely in the refrigerator. So I got 3 pounds of meat here, and I'm gonna continue processing it, and we'll come back with the finished product in a little bit. And here's the end result of my Creton. There's 3 pounds here, and Some people like it warm, but it's better if you let it cool completely. And like I said earlier, the traditional way is to serve it on toast with a little mustard, or you can make a sandwich with tomatoes and lettuce or something like that. But you know what? When you look at that, you say, man, what's the big deal? It doesn't look like anything good, but I think that's gourmet. What do you think? Very easy dish to make, very delicious. And here's the end result in my pan. That's an easy cleanup too. So I hope you try it, and I hope you like it. If not, well, maybe you enjoyed watching my video and had a little bit of fun like I did today. Okay, until next time.